I'm not gonna refresh, I've just gotta hit this screen.
There we go. Well, it's great to see all of you.
Thanks.
Yeah, grab a seat, this is a Senate Agricultural Committee. And what is it, Wednesday morning, Valentine's Day, the 14th.
14th.
And, so glad to have all you with us, and, we'll run around the room and introduce ourselves, so you'll get an idea of who we are, and then we'll get started with Abby.
Good morning, Brian Collins, representing the Rutland District.
Irene Renner, Chittenden North, which includes Fairfax.
Brian Campion, Banks District.
I'm Rich Westman. I'm the Whale District.
Yeah, and I'm Bobby Starr from Orleans, District. So with that, we'll, turn the focus over to you,
Great.
get started.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So my name is Abby White. I am the Vice President for Engagement at the Vermont Land Trust, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Vermont Housing and Conservation Coalition. And so I'm going to be very brief and get on to the real stars of the show here. But VHCC is a coalition of roughly 50 organizations that receive funding from VHCB, and then they deploy those resources out in communities all over the state to advance affordable housing and land conservation. And so the people that are here today, largely from the agricultural community, who are going to be talking to you about the ways in which they've benefited directly from those VHCB investments on farming in particular. So this year, the ask of the coalition for the legislature is to fund VHCB at its full statutory share, which would be roughly $26 billion. The governors recommend gets very close to that, and so we're grateful and hope that the legislature also follows suit in moving that forward. So today I am joined by 4 Vermonters who have their own experiences to share with you in being farmers, and also, as I said, in deploying VHCB resources and partnering with Vermont Land Trust. So we have Jake Cornfield with us, Lizzie Hemingway, Gus Griffin, and Adrian Rainville. And so they will just take, 10 minutes of their time and share with you, and then open up for questions.
Sure. So,
Great.
a plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Great introduction.
Thanks.
so.
me to go?
Yeah,
Jake-
go ahead. You
Jake
can just
is
sit in
up.
the chair.
Sure. Well, good morning.
Yeah.
It's cool to sit at a table with you all. I like to read about the things that you're making happen for our state, and I appreciate it. I think we're.
Main thing to remember, so we put our boots on at a time, just like you do.
I do them both at the same time.
You jump right in, you keep right on going.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I appreciate having a couple minutes to get this topic of farmland conservation and farmland access. I would imagine we all agree that it's important that we be able to feed our own community, and I'm somebody who really enjoys doing that work. But I can't do that work if I don't have land to farm on, right? So
But I don't want to interrupt you too much, but that all started 30 odd years ago, Vermont Housing Land Conservation, and
35 years.
35 years ago in the act of the, and I just happened to be in town then.
That was well before your time.
Oh, yeah. I've been around.
No,
Couple terms.
well, you put together some tools that helped me, so
Yes.
I figure I'll spend a couple minutes sort of talking about how it looks. 35 years ago, I actually had no idea what farmland access looked like, but I know what it looks like today because I've been neck deep in it for the last couple of years. And yeah, I mean, it's a challenge right now. So my name is Jake Kornfeld, also one of 5 owners of the farm upstream. We primarily grow produce. We are in Jericho, Vermont. And yeah, we bought 52 acres last fall in Jericho with the help of Vermont Housing Conservation Board, Vermont Land Trust, VITA, and a couple other organizations. And I think maybe what I can offer that's of value this morning is just sharing a little bit about the process, because it was kind of nuts. It was insane. It's really hard as a farmer right now to buy farms. I think it's like hard for anybody to buy land, but if you're somebody who is working on farms, probably not raking in big bucks, it's really something. So our farm's path to land ownership started 4 years ago. I got together with 4 friends. We'd all worked on a number of farms and just knew that there was no way that financially or physically we were going to be able to pull it off by ourselves. We just didn't see a path to that. So we formed a multi-member LLC. We started working on operating agreements, and we leased some land in Warren. We were living in Richmond and Montpelier at the time, so commuting 45 minutes on weeknights to beat squash was really awesome. But that's the land we had access to, you know. So first 2 years, our goal was pretty explicitly just to create a business history. We knew that the only way we were going to be able to get on land long term was to work with conservation and with ag specific lenders. So we figured, let's create a business history, let's show them that we know what we're doing. And let's try to leverage this tool to lower the cost of land of conservation funding, because we didn't have massive amounts of wealth, so we weren't going to be competitive in an open market for farmers. So we sort of got the lay of the land from a funding and support perspective through VLT, through the Intervale Center, through NOPA's Farm Beginnings program, and started like just looking at soil maps and driving around and looking for parcels that seemed underutilized. And to be honest, a big part of our strategy was we were looking for places that looked like elderly folks were living there who maybe had seen the land in agriculture at some point and then might be more interested in seeing it turned back to agriculture and enter some kind of a long-term lease to own arrangement or something like that. So saw this farm in Jericho, looked up through the property records who owned it and just cold called the landowner, and it actually turned out that she had passed away like a month prior. So we were connected with her daughter, who was the executor of the estate, and the daughter had grown up on the farm and really wanted to stay a farm, but also had to sell. There was family pressure and she just couldn't keep it. So we connected her with the land trust at that point. They sort of established what their shared goals were and created a conservation easement. And at that point, we were able to go to VHCB for conservation funding. So the land trust sort of served as the Vermont Land Trust served as our case manager, was kind of the way I thought about it. They sort of stewarded us through the application with VHCB. The VHCB funding process was not onerous. It was pretty straightforward. We got approved for that funding, and then that sort of unlocked this NRCS funding that matched it. But we also were in Chittenden County, and the land values are so absurdly high right now that even after the match from NRCS, we were still $85,000 short of the development rights value for this property. So VHCB offered the max per acre they could, NRCS offered the max per acre they could, and we were still $85,000 below the conservation value. So we thought we were toast, and then it turns out that Jericho has a local land trust. And so the Jericho Underhill Land Trust came through. They privately fundraised $20,000, and then the town of Jericho had great foresight, and they established a town conservation reserve fund, and we were able to access that for another $65,000. And so at that point, we were finally in the position to actually get a loan, right? So now we're like, this is 2 years into this process since we originally called the landowner. And we got rejected by 3 different banks because we wanted to farm and because we had this multi-member LLC structure. And then
can't
finally,
imagine banks turning you down.
no, it's wild. Look at this face. Come on, how could you not want this? It was really, I mean, three banks rejected us, and 2 of them wouldn't even hear an application from us. They were like, "You want to farm?" No.
Yeah.
And then one was a ag specific bank, and they were like, "I don't like this multi-member thing. It freaks us out. Let's not do it." But Vito was willing to get creative with us, and they approved us for a mortgage. So that was sort of the last piece to fall in place. And in the fall, we closed on this beautiful 50 acres. It's 25 acres of prime tillable soils that have been conserved, like 2,000 plus feet of river frontage have been conserved. Some cool old ecologically unique forests. And it's only sort of at this point that we feel like we can actually really make a go out of farming. So yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly grateful to be in a state that has these kinds of resources to make this sort of thing available. And it also took hundreds of hours and a lot of people's time and effort. And it was, as Al Carnax from the Land Trust like to remind us, just a total house of cards from start to finish. Like little breeze would have blown the thing over. So there's got to be a better way. I don't exactly know what it is. I'm sure you all have ideas. I'm sure that the VHCC community has ideas, but until that happens, I think this VHCD funding is a seriously critical piece to keep farmers getting on the land. We wouldn't have been able to do it without them. I don't really know any farmers at this point whose land isn't conserved who aren't really thinking about it. It's a key piece of financial viability for farmland. So yeah, thanks for your time. Thank you for
You know,
talking about
what
it.
are you gonna do with cropping?
We are going to focus to start on like market garden vegetables. So just get people to the farm. We've got a plot we tilled up for a native plant nursery. And then we've been doing wholesale veggies for the last couple of years. So we'll keep doing that as well.
So you got a market then.
Yeah, I mean, we have good road frontage, so we're gonna do a farm stand. We're gonna start a CSA next season.
Yeah.
Direct sales is where we're trying to go.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you considered putting in some grapes? It takes a while to get them going, but hear lots of good things that, 4 or 5 years in. There's a huge demand for Vermont wines. So if you have land and you have any capacity to put something like that
I
in.
like it. We're
Just
doing,
a thought.
we're doing a lot of grapes.
Maybe you've
We're
already
putting
done that.
apricots, we're
Okay.
putting plums, but we haven't thought about grapes yet, so
So, well, talk to the
open to it.
organization who was in here the other day.
Right,
They've got
cool.
all kinds of good stuff. And in fact, they came in last year and they talked extensively about the economics of it, which they didn't so much last week, but
All right,
for what it's worth.
that's all in the world. Yeah.
When you need to stretch, right? Good luck to you. Where
Thanks.
are you located? Can I-
Sheriff,
Okay, I'm
Deer River.
in Essex, so.
Oh, okay, D River Road?
Yeah.
Yep, so right next to that, yeah.
Good luck to you.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
So you're up next?
I'm up. All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Gus Griffin from Glennis Hill Farm in West Berlin. And I also want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to hear me out. I'm a beneficiary of the VHCD funding. And I'm here to share my experience with you, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time listening. Glennis Hill Farm is an organic vegetable farm, certified organic vegetable farm. We have 3 acres of vegetables right now and around 30 acres of hay. Next year we will be growing, our first year growing dry beans as well. And we have around 100 acres of timberland that we manage for timber sale. We sell primarily directly to consumer. All of our produce is here in the community in Washington County. We sell at the Montpelier Farmers Market. Guys over there, come say hi. We also sell at the Northfield Farmers Market, and we have a 45-member CSA. Half of those CSA shares we give to low-income members for free with money that we fundraise through on-farm concerts, other events on farm.
Wow, that's great.
I grew up here in Vermont, and I worked for 10 years on farms before starting our own farm. I worked on farms here in Vermont, in Maine, in Oregon, Washington, California, and Utah. So I've seen, the state of agriculture in a lot of states. And we were during that, the last 5 or 6 years of farming, I was looking for property in all the different states. Originally, I had thought I did not want to farm in Vermont because growing up here, we saw a lot of our neighbors go out of business. And the narrative was that you can't make it as a farmer, that it's not possible. You can't make a viable income. And that narrative has changed. I think a lot of thanks to that goes to to you guys and to the funding VHCB has provided for farmers to conserve their property. And it definitely would not have been possible for us without that funding, which is what in the end drew me back to Vermont. We got private loans to make up the difference. So we bought our property without help from the land trust, but having initiated the process, and I would not have been able to get those private loans without having the confidence that we would be able to get VHCB funding in 2 years and pay those loans back. When I look around our farmers market here, I notice that many of the farmers who have conserved with the land trust, but also just 7 out of 8 of the farmers are 35 and younger at the Montpelier Farmers Market.
Will you say that number again? Eight of the.
7 out of the 8 are 35 or younger. When I was working in other states, I maybe saw one who was under 50. That's remarkable, you know. And I think pretty important for our state to continue to invest in the future of agriculture. And I think Vermont has really turned that narrative around. I see most of those farmers are making a living. It may not be a really great living, but it's a living. And I can say we've been, we're going to our 3rd growing season, and me and my partner Molly both work full time on the farm, and we make a living to pay our mortgage. We wouldn't be able to pay that mortgage if it was twice as expensive. So really, really appreciate that. Personally, I am so proud to be from a state that has a rich agricultural history and has reinvested in keeping that agriculture into the future. So with that backdrop, I'm really asking you guys to continue the funding, the full statutory funding for VHCB, so others can have the same opportunity that I have. And yeah, thank you so much for your time and for making my career possible.
Yeah, well, it's great that you came back. Nobody chased you back. You came back on your own.
Yeah, my parents were trying to chase me, but
Yeah, and Brian.
Oh, no, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I mean, you had quite a few experiences with other states, and it's good that we seem to be the bright light amongst them. So you came home.
yeah, Vermont does a great job supporting young farmers, and I think that's
Try.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So you go to the farmer's market, what else do you have? Where do you sell your vegetables? Is it mostly vegetables?
right now it's mostly vegetables.
Okay.
We sell it at the farmers market, which we do 2 of. We do some wholesale, but it's 10% of our income, and then we have our CSA that is on farm pickup, and that's 100% of our income.
That's great.
And Brian is the chair of education, and two years ago, I think it was, we put through the Universal School Meals program. So and we encourage local hot lunch people to buy local.
Yeah.
And do you sell any to them, to the locals hot lunch program?
We don't currently. We don't have the staff right now or the facility to wash enough vegetables. Basically, that's the pinch point for us. Is that we're investing in that this year, but right now we don't have enough.
And we do have help at the Agency of Ag for wash stations.
Yeah, I got denied that this year, but hopefully next year we'll get it.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case they're watching, right?
Yeah, they're watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do work with the schools. That's one of the ways that we find our low income families is through connecting with schools, and because, you know, they know who gets the free lunches. And so that's one way that we keep our community fed.
Yeah.
That's great. It's those free CSA shares.
So do you do 45? Does that include the ones you give away as well? or
Yeah.
Something else?
We have 24 ones that we give away.
Yes, I'll be darned.
That's great.
Yeah, and thanks to the community for making that happen. Yeah, they turned out for it, so.
Yeah, great. Irene?
Have you thought about grapes?
Irene sells great peach.
No, I.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I actually worked on a vineyard
Oh, you
in
did?
California.
As you
But we haven't done that investment yet, but we'll see in the
There's
future. Yeah,
There's that.
I think they may be a little better situated in terms of weather and climate for grapes.
Yeah,
Up
sure.
here, we're a little bit colder.
Yeah, they said, what, it takes 3 years before you.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
Up to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm looking to young farmers.
Yeah.
Somebody like.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
they
you
can
know.
live long enough if you're lucky. Yeah. Irene?
We have a lot of conversations happening here about pesticides and neonics and things like that. Do you have any input on topics like that?
Oh, you're talking to a radical.
Okay,
We don't spray anything. We don't use ag plastic. We only use on-farm fertility. So we make all of our own compost. We don't buy in any compost from the Midwest. Is pretty much where contaminated feedlots. We think that it's bad for the waterways, bad for our soil. I am a huge opponent of neonicotinoids, even in small cases, but prophylactic use of neonicotinoids, I think should be banned for sure. They last in the soil basically forever. And you can see on our farm a delineation where they were growing hay that they were not spraying any herbicides or pesticides on, or using any real off-farm fertilizer on, and where they were growing corn. And the fertility, the remaining fertility in those areas is really very different. Even that hasn't grown corn in over 10 years on the farm.
that's all. These are different.
So there is a difference.
Definitely, yeah. And if you're gonna invest in the future of agriculture, you have to invest in the future of the soil.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Brian?
Back to the grant that you guys didn't get,
Yeah.
fingers crossed you'll get. So that would allow you to do what? Because we hear that a lot. We
Yeah.
hear that if schools want to be able to purchase vegetables that are prepared, they can throw them in a pot, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So what would the
We
grant?
would not be preparing vegetables.
No, not preparing them, but what you would be preparing them to sell,
Yeah.
so they would be clean, sliced, kind of
Oh,
thing,
we
or
would
no,
not
no,
slice
all right,
them.
so what
It's
would
basically, so basically right now we operate our wash and pack facilities in our
Okay.
garage. So
Okay.
that is, a 12 by 15 space.
Yeah,
To bring in all of our, if we're processing 150 pounds of lettuce,
yeah,
that takes up most of this, like if we have that and, 100 bunches of kale, that takes up all of the space that we have in our facility. And then because it's our garage and not a wash pack
Yeah,
station,
yeah.
we can't put it on wheels and wheel it into our walk-in cooler. We have to lift up each tote and walk it out to our walk-in cooler. And so it would just make it way more efficient for providing just the same stuff you would see in the grocery store.
washed, packaged.
Washed, packaged,
Okay, that's great,
Yeah.
that's great.
on a larger scale. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's just you and, was it Molly you mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so as is true a lot of times in business, are you near a point where you could hire an additional person to kind of spread the load out and continue to grow, or is that not what you want to do?
It's in the plans.
Okay,
Right now, we're looking at, do we invest in more growth before we invest in our infrastructure? And we've chosen to invest in infrastructure before we add extra hands, because we would rather pay people when they can work efficiently. But yeah, we're definitely thinking of scaling up, hiring people within the next 3 or so years. And yeah, some of that is also expansion using some more tractor cultivation.
Yeah.
As opposed to hand cultivation.
Any other questions?
That's terrific. Best of luck.
Yeah, so much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, see,
Hi,
Ryan,
good morning. I'm Lucy Hemingway of Hemingway Farm in Shoreham, Vermont,
sure.
and my husband is Bill Hemingway, and yeah, I'm a little bit of a different story than the previous two. I'm older and I didn't grow up in Vermont. I have been a farmer all my life. And I've been in Vermont for 30 years. I've been in Shoreham for 30 years. And we were able to buy land in our 20s because it was a piece of land that was $30,000 away in both directions of power. So we've been off grid and we had this tiny little piece of land and we raised 3 kids on this little patch of land. We had cows, we had subsistence farm and raised enough for our family and for our neighbors and our extended family. And that's how we were for 26 years until 4 years ago when our middle child who has autism was aging out of school and we had to think of his future as an adult. And what we did know is that both my husband and I are both educators and we had been running a lot of programs on the farm for special needs kids and also youth at risk. And we were educators off the farm. So we knew that education was our strength and that our child Owen was the place for him to be for his future. We didn't want to send him off the farm. So we were going to create a life for him on the farm. And that meant we were going to have, we're setting up right now a residential program for special needs adults to be living on the farm. Right now, it's just currently a day program. So 4 years ago, as we were coming up with this idea that we really needed to scale up from our homestead to something more business-like, we reached out to the land trust and said that we really want to scale up. The only way to do this is if we were able to purchase more land, and it's unaffordable at this point. Fast forward 30 years, the land is unaffordable. There was 36 acres for sale right next to our 70 acres that we had owned, that where we run our cows, pasture and hayland. And we asked them if they would be interested in conserving our 70 acres plus the 36 acres that was for sale. And in doing so, we'd be able to afford the land. And they were very interested because the farm to the west and to the east that borders that piece, they were also conserved. So it's like a little piece in the puzzle.
You got a block?
We got a block, a really nice greenway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just a wonderful thing. And 3 years later, 2023, the deal went down. And we also put in a riparian zone because the lemon fair goes right through the property and it floods every year. And we've watched a lot of erosion. So there are going to be, I think, maybe 1,000 native trees that are going to be planted in that riparian zone to help with the erosion and to help with water quality. In the from 2020 to 2023, in that period of time during COVID, when everything was haywire, as we know, we also were fortunate enough to be selling my family farm and buying the farm to the east of us. So we actually are now 2 farms. The other farm is a different name. We call it Wiley Side Farm, and that farm came with 30 head of bison, and it's the reason why it didn't sell, because nobody wanted to purchase a farm that actually had bison on it. But we ended up purchasing it, and we were planning to just get rid of the bison, but it was COVID and we couldn't. It wasn't that easy to do. So we thought, well, why don't we just try and donate them locally? And so we ended up donating them to the Abenaki, to the Nahigan tribe of Chief Don Stevens, and they were thrilled because it was a perfect component to their food program. They've been growing a lot of vegetables for their food sovereignty program, and they said this is perfect. This is going to be our protein component, our meat component. So they said yes, 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 but several months went by and they couldn't find a host farm. But after several months, we said, you know what? We're actually really comfortable with this and we'd like to just keep them on the property and we will help you, we'll manage them. So we help manage the bison and we slaughter them on site for their food program and the food goes out to 600 citizens. And it's been really meaningful in many, many
And
ways.
you couldn't find a buyer for
Not at that time because all borders were closed off and we needed a health certificate and we couldn't find a vet. And as time went by, we were more comfortable with them and we owned the 10 of them and they owned the other 25, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have a day program, a year-round day program for special needs adults right now. They come to the farm, we show them how to muck out. They're pretty disabled, so that's a challenge right there. Pitchforks, motor skills. We teach them about soil health and we teach them how to we're growing potatoes and garlic and popcorn is their main thing that they grow and they have learned they made a label, we've taken it to the farmers markets, we're selling it at the farmers markets. These are all very big, huge, they're all autistic. So to be able to do any of those it's been a major feat, but we've gotten them to get to this level. And so we are commercial enough in our beef and bison production, but our funding is mostly coming in from those programs that we're running, so that's kind of keeping us going, that's paying our bills more than the commercial. And we also I've talked about my son Owen. We have two other children who are now, one is 18 and he's going off to college to learn he wants to go to a place that has really good farming practices and he's planning to come back and be a vegetable farmer on our property, which is really exciting. And our daughter who graduated from college 2 years ago, she's living on site, helping us with the programs that we're running, also working off site. But she also is looking into the future for her own farming purposes. So basically, we can't thank you enough for the support and help that we've gotten from VHCB and BLT to be able to conserve and to be able to afford that other piece of land and to expand and also to be able to look into the future with peace of mind, knowing that our children and our children's children, and if whoever others children's children can keep farming. Because to me, there's nothing more important than growing your own food, being able to produce for the community. Local food is going to be the most important, is the most important thing in my mind right now, and clean water. So we just feel peace of mind knowing that we've been able to set this up for the future. I'm also the landlord of 3 other 20-year-olds. It's impossible for these young adults to do anything in this state or anywhere. It's been really hard for them to find a place to live. So I'm happily collecting them all and using them as my workforce, living wherever they can on our land because I just feel for them. They didn't have the opportunity that my husband and I did, where we were able to afford it. We got owner financed by an old timer and we lived in a tent. We were small, but we could afford it. So that's thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, so how many acres did you buy the last, another 70 or?
Yes, we bought another 36 acres through the land trust funding, that added to our 70, so that made it 100 acres that
So,
got
yeah.
conserved, yes.
But then did you
Then
buy,
the other farm came with 300
300?
acres,
So you got
yes.
quite.
We have, we're an entirely different operation. It came with 300 acres and some really nice equipment, and it was it's one of those things just lined up. We got really lucky. We were selling my mother, who's 80, she was 83 at the time. couldn't live in our family farm anymore. It was too hard. And we knew she wanted to move, but I kind of said, do you want to move tomorrow? Because we need to buy this place now because everything's about to change really quickly. And this place is for sale and the person is dying and all these things happened. And
Together.
so they came together and we moved my mom up. And so she's living at the other farm and it's kind of a dream. Like I have it all, I've got it all going.
You've got three, did you say three people that live right on the
Yes,
farm?
with my mother and three other 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yes, and they all work for me.
Yeah,
They have other jobs too, but they all pitch in, which is great.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh,
it's wonderful.
yeah.
It's,
that's-
they have nowhere else to go. It's just too expensive for them.
Well, they have something to do.
They have something to do and they love being there. They're very grateful, so it feels good. Yeah,
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 well, that's great.
yeah.
Irene?
Tell me a little bit more about the adult residents that you have planned.
Yes,
I know
so.
people who'd be very interested.
Oh, I'm sure, yes. So we work with a community called the Yellow House Community, and they're a residential, it's brand new, they started when we started in 2020. Brand new residential community in Middlebury, Vermont, and they're the ones who come out every week and spend time with us. And when they expand, they're going to expand. In this chapter right now, my mother has the farmhouse, but when she passes, that farmhouse is going to become available for the Yellow House community and we'll make it into a residential program of which where my son will live. Right now, he's living in our house. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and our goal for the residential community is for them to just continue to, learn how to farm for themselves, learn how to grow food for themselves, but the real goal is to grow enough food for the food shelves and just to pass it on. So they have a sense of purpose and they have a sense of a skill that they, should be proud of. Yes, yeah.
So, Brian?
Thank you, sure. So is that gonna become like a 501c3 so it can continue?
Yes, and
Right,
that we're in
okay.
the works of a 501c3 at the moment.
Perfect.
There's a lot of avenues we're going, trying
Yeah.
to figure out exactly, my daughter's involved with that planning and, from there, we're trying to get that, once we get a 501c3, then we can work on our endowment and then we can,
See if I can keep it going.
yes.
Bro.
Because
That's great.
that's the hardest hurdle that we're faced with right now is, okay, we have it, but how do we get from A to B? And, well,
Well, there's a need there, as you know.
oh, there is a huge need. Yes. Yeah.
So how many days, people?
There are 8 currently, but they are getting up to 16. That's their goal and, which will be interesting because every one of those participants has a one-on-one and need to have their own needs. So it's a pretty dynamic and interesting group, when they come. Really couldn't be more pleasant. I thought adopting that many more special needs adults into my life would probably drag me down, but it's only uplifted me. It's been the most incredible, life-changing experience. I'm blessed. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Well, sounds like you should be blessed.
Oh.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other?
Well, thank you so
Well,
much.
well,
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Adrian?
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for allowing my wife Margie to be here. I haven't written anything down. I'm gonna speak from here and a little bit from here. Our reason, I should say, thank you for young farmers.
Yeah.
It's encouraging to see that in Vermont.
Yes, it
We
is.
are on the other end of our farming career and I guess I'm gonna try to bring our own perspective to why we move forward with the land trust. I guess I'll go back in history a little bit. When I hear the name Vermont, it's a French term. Vermont, the meaning of it is green mountain. I think that's our heritage, that's our legacy. It's also our brand. And I think the Vermont Land Trust can be very, very important to maintaining this brand. I think we have an obligation to those who walk before us and to those who are gonna walk in front of us to maintain our brand, our legacy. To appreciate the Green Mountains for what they are, to preserve in an ethical manner our forests, utilize them properly, our land, our agricultural land, and our bodies of water, our streams, our rivers, and our lakes. There was a former town clerk in town of Franklin, name was Martha Toll. She wrote a book, she published a book called The History of Franklin, where our farm is located. She detailed one page of that book to the Brown farm. And at the time it was known as the most productive hay farm in the town of Franklin. In the fall of '85, Bree and I purchased the Brown farm. And we raised my family, we were living off the farm. And December 2020, we exited the dairy industry. And we rented the land to another larger farm in LFO, which is a family farm. They're doing a fantastic job at the farm. But I had to reflect on what I wanted to see for the future of the farm upon our transfer of the ownership. So I explored different financial opportunities, both residential, commercial. And I had a conversation with Al, I reached out to Al. And we together came to the decision we want to see continuity to the farm. And that was very important to us. It will allow an opportunity, as it is now, but allow opportunity for further generations to continue. And it adds a sense of continuity, and I think it helps to maintain the Vermont brand, to keep this land open, to see it being utilized in an ethical, responsible manner. So that was one reason. It was another reason. Rock River dissects our entire farm. It's about a mile of stream that dissects the farm. The fall of '86, I made a choice to exclude some livestock away from that river corridor. It was purely voluntary. We saw the benefits to ensuing wildlife, how wildlife tended to benefit from that decision that I made. And I've continued that. I continued excluding the livestock. It was a practice back in the day. I'm sure you know this, Bobby, that farmers would tend to pasture their cattle on land that could not be cropped. But I made a choice, and the benefits to wildlife have been tremendous. And since that time, the entire river corridor now is excluded from livestock, and it also needed some room from human intervention. That had to be limited. So my wife, in a 12-month span, along with her Merlin app on her phone, she's identified right around 70 different bird species in that area. And of course, you have the benefits to the mammals, different white-tailed deer, beavers, otters, minks, etc. And for us, well, I can't put a dollar value to that. It's just something we very much enjoy. We have an appreciation for nature, the land, and Vermont, and it's something we very much enjoy. I want to see some continuity for that. So with this agreement, we went with the land trust. That real estate is now classified as a wetland. I would think the Agency of Natural Resources should be very thrilled with that type of designation, and we couldn't be happier. We get to enjoy the benefits of seeing wildlife thrive. Springtime is beautiful there. April, May, it's baby season.
Yeah.
All the birds are nesting, all different forms, different species, and it's so enjoyable for us. So it's something we want to see continue. When the land transfers, somebody owned it before us, somebody's gonna own it after. We were open for the decisions we made with the assistance of the land trust. See some continuity to our own vision, which hopefully is a correct vision for what's good for the area and for Vermont. And I guess that would be our perspective. It wasn't just a dollar bill. There was a financial incentive, but we left money on the table. But it wasn't just about a dollar bill. There was others to think about, our own vision, I guess, so. We're very happy with the decision we made. Al and Tucker have been wonderful to work with. There was no pressure. We didn't have to do this. It's something we volunteered to do. There was, as I said, financial incentive, but
So you sold your farm to the land trust
we sold
or
the development rights.
development rights?
That would be correct, Al?
Yeah, sold an easement, sold, yeah.
That's all we sold.
Yeah,
That's all we sold.
so
And
it's gonna stay farming then.
I would love to see continuity.
Yeah.
Basically what I stated, I think it's, if we want to maintain the Vermont brand, our legacy, our heritage, I think it's going to require that.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if we didn't have land that was conserved in the last couple of years, what would happen with the influx of people from elsewhere picking it up, you know, and chopping it up? Yeah.
You put a house in a chunk of woods, it's not a woods anymore. You have displaced wildlife.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to see that. Our neighbors are far enough, and they're close enough. It's a very, very beautiful area.
Yeah.
To be.
Well, Franklin's a nice town anyway.
So thank you.
A good word for Franklin.
As far as like, I grew up in St. Albans Bay area. And all the farms that I grew up seeing during the sixties and seventies, they're all houses now.
Yeah.
They're all turning into houses and I kind of breaks my heart because, yeah, you know, it's just not the same anymore.
No, and you go down through there and it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're packed right
But-
along.
McQuam Shore is, I mean, the east side of the road there, what used to be Pike Farm and everything, it's all houses now. And further down, the Andals own some property, that's all going up in the houses and I don't know, it's just like, it's too much.
Yeah. So, now there's a larger farm that rents, your property?
It's an LFO, it is a family farm. They're doing a wonderful job. We did a short-term lease, a 5-year lease, and we'll renegotiate or we'll see what direction it takes from there. I want to see the land being utilized in a proper manner. It's very, very productive agricultural land,
Yeah.
and I'd like to see that continue. We're both born and raised in Vermont. We're both lifelong farmers. I just love being around it. That's where your heart is, and it's a good feeling.
And one part of the land that we don't rent out is what used to be our pasture around the barn. And we've been approached by different people who wanted to rent that to pasture the animals, and it says, no, that's our wildlife area. And now, almost every day in the summer, spring, summer and fall, we see deer across the road in that pasture.
Yeah.
From the house, you know, and they wouldn't be there if the cows were still there.
Yeah. Oh, no. They don't usually commingle very well.
There's probably only a couple times while we had animals out there that I saw deer. There very briefly, probably just passing through. And now they come right around the barn and go right up in the barnyard. You can see their tracks. And they cross the road right down below the barn.
You remember Fran Howell from across the fence?
Yeah.
She was a bird lady.
Yeah.
She's walking around her shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They call me the crazy bird lady.
So that app is helpful? You like it?
Very helpful.
Is it good? Yeah, that's great.
You can't see them, you can at least hear them and
That's great.
identify them.
That's great, yeah.
Adrian, that's one of the things I first remembered when I walked into your house the first day. Marie was already talking about birds.
Oh, there's many different forms of wealth.
Mhm.
It's not just a dollar bill. And we can conserve that, preserve that, pass it on for future generations. Hopefully, they will have the same appreciation that we have. And I guess that's kind of the perspective we bring here. Trying to bring that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing it.
Other questions?
Also, I was just gonna add, Bobby, too, Lissy already touched on this. When we did her project, it was part of a block, and it was very much true. with your property, because there's conserved land on literally three sides.
Oh,
So it's sort of expanding that.
so you got a pretty big block around you then that's conserved.
And I should mention, the neighbor called me last week to have a conversation with you folks.
Oh, good.
He became aware of our decision and anyway.
Well, it's good to have blocks of land where, you know, you don't have to get up on the road and go a mile and then back in the field, and if you can keep your ag land together, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Thanks
do.
for what you did. Thank you.
is there anyone else that would like to comment today? Well, Al, do you want
I made my comments, not just, well, thank you.
to?
Thank you for having us.
I just want to acknowledge the land trust staff that are here, so you know Al Carnatz,
Yeah.
Tucker Malone here, and Britt Hazelton as well. And so the three of them are really instrumental in making all of these projects go. I don't want to put any one of you on the spot, but if there's any additional insight you have about kind of the underbelly or like the back side of things, there's a lot of complexity to the work.
Yeah.
And certainly integrating the federal funding is not easy, but I just, without putting you on the spot, no pressure, but if there's anything you want to add.
It is an intricate, long process with VHCB and the NRCS funds that match the state VHCB funds. Holly McClintock is from VHCB. So we work really closely together on, building a pipeline of really great farm projects and bringing them through the process. It's onerous, but we try to bear the brunt of it and have farmers, have it be as easy as possible on the farmers and landowners.
Well, we had John Roberts in earlier. He works at FSA and he said it takes forever, to get
Yeah.
things moving, and we usually try to move along like we're still alive, but he said that it's really hard to get answers from USDA, and you think you're gonna get it next week, and it's pretty soon it's a month, so how is, you guys, you're down in Shore, Madison County, so you're in a big farming county, and of course, Adrian, and they're from up Franklin County, and that's pretty much agriculture is
Very intense.
still a big issue up there. And, over the mountain, Orleans County, where I'm from, is still pretty good. But it seems like the big farms are getting bigger. And, the small farms the farmers are getting older.
They're
And
turning into satellite farms.
it gets to be harder and harder every year as you get age on you to keep the small farm, just doing the work, but the big farms that we have over in Orleans County seem to, they seem to do a pretty good job, they keep the animals, if they are out, away from the brooks, and they're on time doing their work, and so they're pretty busy people, but they seem to do a good job.
Senator, could I add to that a little bit?
Sure.
Last summer, I was involved with Vermont's largest dairy farm in Berkshire area somewhat on a part-time basis. I was very, very impressed how that farm is managed, how they treat their employees. Their animal husbandry is outstanding, and how they treat the land. I was very, very impressed. We tend to lament the passing of the small farm as I do. on my road, there used to be 8 dairy farms on a stretch of 3 miles. Now they're all gone. The land is still being utilized, but prior to that, it was a 2,000-acre sheep farm. I suspect with history's habit of repeating itself, I wouldn't be surprised in 100 years, these big farms become fragmented again. Some type of other agriculture will take its place.
Yeah.
So and in fairness to these big farms, they do a wonderful job. I worked with these migrants. They travel 3,000 miles to earn a good paycheck to send back to their families to help their quality of life. And I'm pretty impressed by how these people carry themselves. I don't think too many Vermont youth will travel 3,000 miles to go to work to send their paycheck home. So I have a lot of respect for those people. And it comes down to how these people are treated by these big farms.
Well, they're good at it, seem to be really good at it.
They're very good at what they do.
Yeah.
And they have to be.
Yeah.
For these farms to thrive. Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to be a little bit of a wet blanket, and this is no criticism of what they do. But in my area, what I see is the meadowland is what the larger firms want. And the pasture land on all of the small farms that are around me are gone.
That's true.
Pasture land are gone in what way?
It's all grown up to,
Oh, it's grown up to trees.
yeah.
Not, there's not housing, it's not.
It's not housing, it's
Okay.
all grown up to trees and, some of it is grown up to housing. Because the pressure on us is tremendous.
Right.
We have a ski area and, we're 40 minutes from Burlington.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is, if you were a hill farm, if it doesn't grow up into housing, your pasture land is gone because that's not what the big firms want.
Right.
And it's a different landscape.
Interesting.
Well, your woods is getting thicker and bigger.
Now, all of our woods are now, big sugar places. On both sides of us, one's 85,000 tabs and one's 55,000 tabs. I love to see it all used in it, but it's a different landscape.
But you'd have trouble pasturing those woods with all those sap lines running.
Well, we didn't pasture the,
The maple.
we didn't pasture the maple in the, but if I didn't work off the farm, the 90 acres that I've got pasture, that I put, that by the time we get it all, we'll have $60,000 worth of fencing. If I didn't have money offering the farm and do that, all of the other firms around us, their pasture land is growing up to scrub. So it is a different landscape. And that's no criticism of the big firm, it's just what it is.
Any other questions from the committee? Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Senator. Hi, Pauline McClintock from the HCB, and I would just like to share their really valuable use of our funding when I have your time. Our partnership with land trusts across the state, not even just BLT, who is incredible, but the Upper Valley Land Trust, who's represented here today as well. These project directors, Tucker, Al, Britt, spend so much time connecting with these landowners, and I can't even imagine the amount of time it takes to go out there and create these deals and then steward those deals when they're done. And an aspect of the HCB funding that isn't always recognized are our organizational grants. Every year we provide hundreds of thousands of dollars in capacity funding to these organizations such as VLT and QBLT. And Susie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think that our funding to some of the smaller land trusts such as UBLT is what enables the project directors to create a really robust pipeline, such as Susie and your colleague Craig, who are relatively new in those roles and in the past couple of years have brought us some really great projects, really valuable ag projects in particular. So I would encourage you to fund our statutory funding so that we can keep up that level to our partners and provide supplemental funding as we have been in the past few years. And if this funding is cut, we might not be able to provide that support that enables these people to even be here and serve this. So thank you very much.
Yeah, but thank you. Anything else, Abby?
I think that does it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for the time.
well,
Very generous, and thank you everybody for being here and contributing.
yeah, well, it was great, hearing from you. And like Adrian said, it seems good to see some young people coming along that want to farm. It's really, important, you know. That's one thing we all have to do is eat every day, so, yeah. Yeah, so again, thanks a lot, and,
Thank you for your support.
yeah,
Always been
well,
champions of farmland conservation as a committee.
a couple of us also sit on the phone, so that helps.
It's hopefully next year, and it becomes a lot. Yeah. Thank you so much.
That's great.